Welcome back to another episode of Skids and Donuts. I've got a gazebo, so I can actually start working in the rain. In today's video, I'm going to be going over what I've done so far and why I've not uploaded for the last 3 weeks. And hopefully we can piece the rest of this engine together, crank it over, and pray everything works as it should. Let's roll the intro. So the biggest news is I've got that gearbox in, and that's also the reason I've not uploaded for the last 3 weeks. That thing took, what, like 12 hours in total to get on, and it was all down to up there. Well, you can't really see it. Just above the starter motor, there is one of 2 locator pins, so you get the transmission in the correct orientation. That, for some reason, was not letting the gearbox go on. The other side was fine. That one wasn't, but I couldn't pull it out, I couldn't drill it out, so there was no way of doing it. Eventually I managed to jack the engine up high enough to get an angle grinder, but I spent 10 hours of that trying to get this thing in how it was. However, the rest of it's in, so the transmission's on, the transmission mount is on. I've got a new, well, I suppose a mount as well, rubber mount there. Engine's obviously got new mounts, so that should smooth things out significantly. The drive shaft is in. I haven't checked the carrier bearing. That can be done in the future if it is noisy. But yes, a lot of the underside is now done. I've got a few more bolts for the transmission that need to go in and tighten down, especially the top ones. I've got them in, but they're not tightened down. After that malarkey is done, I've got to attach the radiator fan. Attach, well, the fan and the shroud to connect it all together and make sure this doesn't fly off. The exhaust is on, but it's not mounted to the gearbox yet. Then once that's in and fitted, I need to bleed the clutch out so we can actually test the clutch as well. Last but not least is to fill this thing with water, and I've got some radiator flush just to get rid of all the old gunk you would have seen in a previous video. Hopefully that will work perfectly fine. Well, hopefully the engine actually starts. So before I add the radiator flush, I'm going to make sure this thing runs. If it can start for like a minute or so, maybe less, sound, happy days, then I can chuck in what I need to. So I'm going to get the transmission stuff done and out the way off camera because it's a pain in the arse.
5 hours later.
Well, excuse the face because I look like I'm 20 years older than I actually am. But I've got the gearbox all bolted up. I can't reach the top ones, so I think I need to buy like one of those really long spanners, but that is fine because I have bolted up the exhaust to the transmission. I've got the mount for that. I cleaned it all up as well, make it look a bit nicer, even though you can't see it. So for all intents and purposes, the bottom end is done. I do need to figure out a solution for this throttle cable. If anybody knows how to sort of make these, or you know, make them fit properly, I'd appreciate that in the comments below, because I'm a bit lost on it. I don't really want to cut this off and then I'm even more buggered, but I don't think I can leave it tied around itself. So we'll get the clutch plumbed in, we'll get the starter plugged in, we'll get the clutch bled, and then we'll get the radiator fan on, and then hopefully we should be able to crank this thing over. And let me just tell you about that, I am nervous about it because I've got no idea if this engine works as it should. It does rotate, it does have a carburetor, which helps two massive things out. We don't know about compression yet, and we don't know if this thing will even run. I've put my distributor cap on, so we should have spark as long as the rest of the distributor's fine. It does have oil in there. I'm not changing the oil until I know this thing runs properly. One thing I did want to show you though, is you may have seen in some videos I've had the windshield replaced. And that is the one thing I paid somebody to do on this car. And unfortunately, so that's what I put there, that's silicone. That's just because this wasn't installed properly. So I was hoping I could sort of silicone it down. Didn't work, fine, whatever. But if you look closely, that black silicone there shouldn't do that, but if you also look carefully, there's no primer on the outside of the windshield. So all the way around, the windshield is virtually peeled off. It's the same on the other side. So I'm going to need to take this glass out without breaking it, hopefully, because these are quite fragile. And fingers crossed, I can then put some primer around it, some windshield primer, use some proper adhesive like 3M adhesive, and then glue this thing back in. However, I do actually have the wipers working now, which is a massive bonus, because since I've had this car, these have not worked. I've got a wiper motor out of a Torslander, and then there's this screw here, if you're doing the same, bolt shall I say, and I've made my own ground cable. There's 2 cables there, and that's just grounded to the body there. But that works, it's not blowing a fuse or anything. I've still got the old wiper motor just in case I can rebuild it in the future or something. But I do need new wipers because the ones that came with the car are like 18 inches. This windshield, well, this car only needs 16-inch wipers. But for now, it's on to getting this clutch in and continuing on. The car is that low, can't get my jack out. So what I'm doing here is the clutch line. It's a rubber line that goes to a solid steel line or copper line, whatever it is. It'd also be good to know, has anybody else carb swapped to their 240 yet? Because I found it significantly better than Cager. I know I've not driven either one technically fully, but the sound this thing makes beats Cager any day. And how simple it is. That's it. It's just this. One fuel line. Not some octopus array of, you know, hoses, injectors, and not fun stuff. If this was the LH 2.4, I'd be happy. I like standard injectors. Those mechanical injectors I did not enjoy. So if you have carb swapped it, let me know, because I'll be interested to see what you've done to yours. Especially this cable. I don't know what to do with that. Now, I did buy this thing because I'm on my own a lot, which is a pressure brake bleed kit. So you can obviously do your clutch with it as well. I don't know how good it is, but the one I had before was the one that you connect to your tyre for the air pressure, which wasn't good. It really wasn't. So at least this one, I can control the pressure on it. It's even got a little dial on there as well, which is nice. So I'm not putting too much pressure on it that it'll blow any seals or anything. Slowly going down. Oh yeah, there's stuff coming out now. If you look closely, you can see the bubbles in the line. I think it needs a bit more pressure though. Right, so the clutch slave cylinder is now bled. That is at the correct level. I just need to put the original cap on. And that's all the juice that came out, which is darker actually. Even though it was new fluid anyway, but that's why it's good to flush these things, get anything dirty out. So I do that, and then the fan, and then the really scary part of cranking this thing over, which I am very nervous about. We've got the battery here. Transmission bolt. Whoops. It's not from this transmission, I've got 2 of them now. So get that in. Positive first. Negative. And I think, boys and girls, we're ready, and I'm extremely nervous about this. There's no coolant in it yet, I just want to make sure it works. That was a lot more tappety than I would have liked it to have been. Why? I don't know what's happened there. Did that sound tappety to you? That didn't sound healthy. Just double check the oil. Loads of oil. Pretty clean oil as well. Let's try and adjust the carburetor. So I'm going to try and adjust the carburetor and get it to the stock values of this carb. Hopefully get it idling smooth enough and find out what that tapping is, because I didn't enjoy that sound. So I do have this really cheap borescope endoscope thing. So I've got the spark plugs out. It's probably a good time to check in there. Have a look what's going on. So there is cylinder 1. Doesn't look too bad actually. Bit of carbon buildup, but nothing major, which is good. Can't see any damage or anything like that. So cylinder 1 is fine. This only cost me about 20 quid. I recommend you get one. Whoops. Purely on the basis you can check things like that. You can check into like the chassis rails to see how well they're doing. Spark plugs aren't too bad. They're a bit black. That could have been from me. Doesn't matter. But I'm going to clean up my old ones, which are technically new. Stick those in. Try and adjust the timing a bit whilst everything's cool. And then see how well we can get it running. Okay, so I've changed the spark plugs. I've tried my best to adjust the distributor. I've just done it like halfway. It was completely opposite to what the old engine was. So I'm hoping that noise was just pre-detonation. Hopefully, like the pinging sound. Let's crank it over and see what's what. Excellent. Excellent. So there we have it, a completely successful engine swap. I'm happy about that. I can't believe I actually got something right for once, and it was just detonation. There was a panic at first, there really was. But everything is working as it should. I'd need to adjust the carburetor to figure out where the best idle is. That's something we can do off camera, because I kind of need to learn how to do it properly. But she runs. And from what I could see, or didn't see, I didn't see any grey or white smoke coming out the back. It may need to warm up for that, I don't know. So yeah, I'm very happy. I do need to test the gearbox still, but I need it to be running better first. Overall, I'm really happy. That is all for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.